I bring all of the science knowledge that I have researched and accumulated over my years of going to school at Rutgers and Texas A&M University, and I bring it to the problems that we have at our organization in our communities. We have been researching this topic because we want to see it done right the first time. If there are going to be unintended consequences that could happen from the projects, we want to make sure that we are researching them as much as possible to try to avoid any of the negative impacts coming from offshore wind. We're concerned about marine mammals, but the Mid-Atlantic Regional Council on the Oceans has been putting together data on all of the species that are out there in order to see where would be the best placement for our turbines to go into our oceans. Anyone can go online and see the data and overlay the maps in order to get a whole entire story of the marine ocean.
From a wildlife perspective, it could be the most wildlife-friendly clean energy solution if we get it right. So that's what we're all about. We advocate for large-scale, rapid development of this industry because climate change is the leading threat to wildlife. We need to embrace large-scale clean energy solutions, and I won't sugarcoat it, it will have impact on wildlife. And we know that, and so our goal is to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts in that order, and we engage on the details at every stage of development to advocate for things like coordinating construction schedules around wildlife migration patterns, to surveying an area to ensure that there are no endangered whales within a zone of loud construction activity, to reduce vessel speeds so that those navigating through the water, transiting crew back and forth can ensure that they are not posing an increased risk to the wildlife in their path.
Things like fisheries, our marine mammals, and our birds that are migratory species, and they move throughout the atmosphere and may be hit by the offshore wind turbine. More birds die from window impacts than they do turbines. They also get hit often by cars. Cars can cause over 6 times as many deaths as wind turbines do.
The most important phase of protecting birds is in choosing the right location, right? So when we're talking about development offshore, particularly far offshore, so we at National Wildlife Federation are always advocating for development further from shore. Since the dawn of our offshore wind advocacy, protecting right whales has been essential to our ability to support offshore wind development. It's a species that has fewer than 400 whales alive in the world today. They're on a trajectory toward extinction if we don't really respond to that. So it's something that we take extremely seriously, and there is a lot that we can do to protect North Atlantic right whales. So now it really is more about monitoring and ensuring that we know that there are no right whales in the area before any loud construction activity starts. It's hard for wildlife and conservation organizations to endorse and support large-scale infrastructure development anywhere, maybe particularly in the ocean. So that said, that's what makes this so hard. It's so important that we need to reduce the climate crisis as fast as we can. And so we need to do things that feel a little uncomfortable and get the details right along the way.
Offshore wind gives us the opportunity to do a better job with the way that we're creating energy. It's a new way of bringing power that doesn't have the impacts on our planet that our current sources of power do. It's going to be an important tool that ensures that we have less flooding in our communities, that we don't lose species in the ocean due to changing currents and warmer oceans. It's our best chance to make sure that we get this right, and I think we want to make sure that we're in the process, engaged in the process, making sure that the process is done right. Because of the way that these cables deliver energy, they give off a slight magnetic field. It's similar to the amount of magnetic field that comes off of a hairdryer, say, or a drill. It's a small amount. It doesn't affect us. It does affect some fish. Some fish use magnetic fields to find their way to food or to find their way to mating grounds. So when you have a magnetic field, introduce a new magnetic field, it could have an impact. Now the good news is, from a commercial angler perspective, there are very few fish that are even affected by this small magnetic field. And even better than that is there are ways that we can make sure that these cables give off the least amount of magnetic field as possible. We can bury them in the ground. We can put things on top of them. So any little effect that it has on the fish is further minimized by the way that we design the projects.
We already know from the Block Island wind farm, the turbines have been in the water since 2016, and they've created artificial reefs really quickly. I mean, within 6 months, there were like inches thick of mussels on the foundations of these turbines. Every time you go to the Block Island wind farm, there are a few fishing boats around each turbine. It's really productive fishing ground, but that means, more importantly, it's a really healthy ecosystem at the base of these turbines.
The process to develop offshore wind is long, and it's long by design. If we take the wind farm that is going to be built in New Jersey, that auction was held back in 2015. From that point, there have been a series of reviews, lots of opportunities for public input, and it's really developed as a process to take time to allow us to get it right. And that's the kind of way, that's the way we want it to be. We all need to know that we can be informed and we can be engaged. The more that we're engaged in the process, the better the process is going to be for community members. And that goes from the government process to the developer process, where the developer is working with the communities to ensure that there are the maximum amount of benefits to the communities where this power is coming in. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in offshore wind development. It shouldn't be seen as a threat to a community, but as an opportunity to work together to make sure that these are done in the best possible way.
Good questions are going to make this industry better. So if you have real concerns and real questions, we do too, right? Like half of my job is addressing and digging into concerns and trying to figure out what experts do we need to bring to the table so that we can advance new solutions to these challenges. This is not simple, it's not straightforward, so it's okay to be skeptical. I would say bring your questions to the table, but keep an open mind, because if we are saying no to offshore wind, we're saying yes to something else. We're saying yes to something that very likely has more significant detrimental impact to wildlife. So let's make sure that we're raising questions, but that we're understanding it's not offshore wind or nothing. We're trying to solve a problem here, so we need to do something.